So, like Dan said, we played a little bit of rock, paper, scissors this week. And I normally win every week, so I get to work with the kids. But for some reason this week, I figured I'd let him have a week of winning. So I let him win this one. And he said he was really, really excited to work with the kids because he thought it might make him more youthful, you know, make him a little younger, bring some of that hair back. But I have something to tell you. It doesn't work that way. Working with youth does not make you more youthful. In fact, I think we have a picture here that shows this point. If you can't see it, it says, "Who said youth ministry was stressful? I'm 22 and feeling great." And it's a super old guy. So our word for today is kindness. And as with all the other fruit that we have talked about so far, we need to remember that all of these work together. It's not fruits, but rather fruit of the Spirit. And even if we were to live the exact opposite of this whole big group of fruit that we've been talking about, God would love us no less. And in the same way, if we were to live exactly according to these fruits, God could not love us anymore. But if we strive to live our lives according to this group up here, our lives will be a whole lot easier. If we stand on our tiptoes and grasp and try and reach for those fruit up on the tree and get them and use them, we'll be making more of a positive impact on those around us than we could ever imagine. Now, I want to talk about kindness to others today, and to be able to understand this concept, I want to express to you the views that people my age, the dreaded millennials, have about the church. And you might think this is a weird way of going about this, but I hope that as we go along, you'll understand. So more than 1/3 of millennials now say that they're not affiliated with any faith, and the number keeps growing. Millennials are leaving the Christian church in droves. Why is this? Well, I have the unique opportunity of being able to talk to you all in this capacity in church at 22 years of age. And this morning, I want to be completely honest with you as to why I believe millennials are leaving, and I hope that you would expect nothing less of me. Now, some of these things that you hear today might be new concepts or ideas for you. Some of our views of the church might surprise or even offend you, but I feel like if we want to grow as a church, really honestly grow and spread the good news of Christ to the younger generations, we need to tackle these issues head on. So here are some reasons I have that millennials are leaving the church. Millennials think that church is repetitive and pointless. Now, whether it's through experiences that we've had or from what we've been told, we view the message of the church like being served lukewarm soup every week. It leaves a bad taste in our mouths, and we're still hungry when we finish eating it. Sure, the message may relate to everyday life in some way or another, but there's nothing challenging about it. Our generation is one that wants to tackle issues head on. And yes, this even includes social and world issues. We want a church that paints God not as a being in the sky with a permanent smile affixed to his face, but one that strives to teach of God on this earth. Jesus Christ, the man in the flesh. The man that ate with and loved sinners. The man that cared for and loved the oppressed, the underprivileged, and the weak. The one that stood up to the Pharisees and took on 200 years of bad establishment. The one that flipped the tables in the temple when it was being used as a money den. The one that picked up the cross, died for us, died for me, a sinner to the core. We're told that we are supposed to be like Christ. When we come to church, we're always said, be more like Christ. But a lot of churches fail to teach us how to do that, and even more churches fail to do it with their actions. Now, what better way is there for a church to teach us how to be like Christ than to be an example of Christ's ideals by the way it treats its members, the surrounding community, and the world? We look for a faith community that is committed to social justice in its local community and people on our earth. A church that challenges and questions long-held pointless customs, that refuses to say, well, we've always done it that way, so why change now? We want a church that strives to follow the teaching of Jesus Christ with all its being and shows its members how to do that in their individual lives, not only by what is being preached every week, but by the way it treats others and the world. It needs to be a church on fire, to be willing to take on issues, willing to change, to move forward with the world, and willing to not be afraid to back down. Now, I was talking to a friend the other day, and they told me this. A lot of times, churches concentrate on really trivial, superficial things that don't matter. There are more important things to us than traditions and customs of the church that are there for really no reason. Take out all the high church stuff and get down to the root of what actually matters, changing the world outside our doors. We want our church to not only feel real, but be real. Now, another view that millennials have of the church is that it's fake. Building off the last statement I had of feeling real and being real, if there's one thing that millennials are good at, it's seeing through lies. We've grown up in a world where we've been exposed to 3,000 to 5,000 advertising messages per day since we've been born. And because of this, we have pretty good bull detectors. It's easy for us to see when something isn't what it claims to be. And we can't stand those things. We need something that's real and true, especially in a church. So much emphasis is put on worship style these days. And while it's important to keep up with current trends and remain relevant, what's even more important than using a guitar or an organ in worship is that the church is genuine. We would rather go to a traditional church that challenged us, spoke truth, and worked as hard as it could to be a change in the world than a modern church with a fog machine, the latest in digital equipment, but they left that lukewarm soup taste in our mouth and didn't really make any change in the world, but tried to act like they were. Another millennial told me this: church needs to just be a conversation. I don't care about hymns or anything like that. I just want to be challenged and fed real truth. We know when we're being fed lies, and we'll be out the door fast and not come back if that's the case. Another view millennials have is that the church is individualized. And although we're looked at as the generation that's constantly on our own with our noses in our phones, we actually yearn for human interaction. Churches where you're just a number to them are not really our thing. We want interaction and we want communication. And with the emergence of megachurches, many millennials feel like they're nothing more than 1 in 3,000 or however many people show up and that they don't really matter. There's no connection there for us. So what can we do? Well, this one's actually quite easy. There needs to be a large emphasis on communication. Whether in a smaller church, it's with the entire congregation during a service face-to-face, or in a larger, even a mega church, it's a small group meeting on a Tuesday night. There needs to be a feeling of belonging. Here's what a millennial I asked about said to me. I really don't care about the biblical studies part of it. Not to say the Bible doesn't matter, but you don't need that every week. What I need are relationships and knowing that we believe in the same God and He is always there for us. It all comes down to relatability and feeling we belong. Now, we're also a generation that loves to learn. And this is where baby boomers and older generations are key. They hold all the financial, intellectual, professional, and relational capital from decades worth of experience. And if the church can tap into all that capital and leverage it to equip us to lead these next generations in the church, we will be willing to learn. We want mentors. We want strong, smart, and equipped individuals to help guide us and help teach us. Now, another point is that millennials feel absolutely no moral obligation to attend church. A variety of reasons for this, the way we were brought up, things like that, but if we don't go to church, it's okay. There's nothing inside of us that's eating away at us if we miss church. I really don't need to go to church. I can get anything I want online. I can watch sermons, I can listen to Christian music, I can stream podcasts, or I can do none of the above and still be perfectly okay. And I also have great friends that'll be there to talk about these things with me. They'll support me when times get tough, and they'll help me through, and they don't go to church. I have absolutely no reason to come here. So what can be done about this? First thing, we have to accept it. We have to accept that it's okay for people to show up to church once every 2 months or however often it may be. We have to know that God is still working in their lives. We have to pray for their spiritual journey. And if it's not happening every Saturday night or Sunday morning in our midst, we have to know that Christ is, regardless, still working in their lives. We also have to accept the fact that some millennials want nothing to do with organized religion, or religion at all for that matter. And trying to tell us we have to come to church is only going to push us away. Now, what we do have to do as a church is know that Christ still loves them, still cares for them, and still has a plan for their lives. Just because somebody hasn't publicly proclaimed to believing in God, or they have denounced him altogether, doesn't mean that Christ isn't still moving in them. They're still great people, capable of doing amazing things. And if this is the message that the church starts to tell others, that it's okay to join us when you feel comfortable joining us, that it's okay to have serious doubts, even that it's okay to not believe at all, and through all of that you're still welcome here, it's going to be much better off. Now, like I said, having a church, or two in my case, to call home is still very important to me. So when millennials do show up, what are we offering to them? My generation is not a generation of onlookers. We need to be involved. We want our ideas and opinions to be known. We want to collaborate with others on projects and decision-making. The days of working individually and letting senior members of organizations make all the decisions for us are really dead with our generation. We've been taught our entire lives, through school, through college, through everything, to work together, share ideas, and make decisions as a whole collaborative group. Now, another millennial I talked to said this: "A lot of the Bible is not relatable to me, but what is relatable is sharing stories and ideas with those around me, and that will do more than anything else to help me grow my faith." The church for years has had a terrible habit of letting all the decision-making up to the senior members of the organization who have put in their time or paid their dues. This isn't what we're looking for. In fact, there may be nothing that makes us leave a place faster than feeling like our ideas are not welcomed. And this is actually what attracted me to and has made me stay here at St. Paul's. Connor and I have come up with some pretty off-the-wall ideas, but those ideas were still accepted, and we were given the go-ahead to run with them. Now, Sean Williams, who is a campus pastor at Community Christian Church in Naperville, Illinois, says in an article I found online that millennials want to play a role. Here's his quote: "They don't want to sit on the sidelines and observe. If they're going to be part of a church, it must have value and meaning. In generations like the baby boomers, people attend church out of some moral obligation to do so. Millennials won't have any of that. If it doesn't provide meaning and value to them, they won't participate. They'll go and find something that does have meaning and value." We provide this meaning and value by giving them a voice, by challenging them, by being real, by accepting them for who they are, and being a family that allows millennials to participate in every aspect of striving to be like Christ. Now, this last section is probably the most challenging section of all of them, and that is that millennials feel that the church is bigoted, judging, homophobic, intolerant, and just plain mean. Now, this is the most challenging, but I feel like this is the most important topic that we need to talk about today, and this is actually where kindness really comes into play. These concepts up here are loathed by millennials. We can't stand when religion is used as an excuse to hate. And many churches have an idea in their minds that if you don't believe exactly what they believe, then you're a bad person, or you're not a real Christian, or you might even go to hell. Now, I want to make it very clear before I start talking about this section that this is not our church. St. Paul's and everyone here does a wonderful job. Like we sang the first hymn this morning, All Are Welcome, does a wonderful job of making all people feel welcomed and loved in this place. But I still want to show you what more churches than not out there are doing. There are churches that preach hate and intolerance. And even though there are an overwhelming number of churches like ours that are open, affirming, loving, caring, kind, the good still is outweighed by the bad. People still have the feeling that church is a place to stay away from if you are homosexual or transgender, or have serious doubts about God, or don't believe exactly what the church might believe. Even our own synod, the higher church body that we belong to, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, holds the misogynistic view that women should be seen and not heard. That means not holding leadership positions, not serving communion, not assisting in worship in any way. And I'm very glad that our church does not follow the same views that they have. Now, people stay away from church because they feel like they won't be welcomed or even shunned for being who God created them to be. And in more cases than not, that's 100% true. Here's another quote from a millennial I talked to when I asked them their view of the church today. In a country that is more progressive than not, we find ourselves stuck in a church that is recessive. We don't even explore any progression at all. The church is stuck in old-fashioned ways and views. Society is constantly changing, but the church never changes. The church, as one of the biggest entities in society, needs to be making changes to become more like Christ, a unifier with the heart for the underprivileged. Society is becoming more and more polarized and separated by a variety of issues. It's time for the church to leave its archaic, long-held beliefs and reach across the divide to try and unite both sides as a community of believers. Now, I want to share a personal story with you, if you'll let me. While we were in the beginning stages of looking for a new pastor, I started to go to a different church in addition to ours. And at this church, they had a great band, they had lots of activities going on, lots of young families and people my age, pretty much everything that I wanted in a church. And the first time I walked in there, I was blown away by everything that was happening. And honestly, I loved it. The messages were powerful, and I was around people similar to me, and because of that, I started to go on a regular basis. Now, on the outside, everything was great, but on the inside, I started to change without even knowing it. The messages, although powerful, were sometimes entwined with hate. Messages of how we need to keep marriage between a man and a woman because gay marriage is extremely sinful, and we should not support our friends in the LGBT community and even exclude youth in that community from events that were held at the church. Messages of how we should separate ourselves from those that don't believe like we do, even if they're close to us. Or how churches are wrong if they're not worshiping like us because obviously they're not worshiping correctly. Now, these were hard for me to handle at first, but over time I started to change. I started to agree with and even support these views. I started to become a person that I didn't want to be. Now, the reason I tell you this is not to rip on another church or to say that they're doing things wrong, because I don't want to do that. The reason I tell you this is because although we don't like these things that you saw up here before, we're still very impressionable. From young youth to mid-20s, the ideals we believe in and stand for are formed. As a church, we need to be pouring our energy into our youth to raise them on the ideals of the fruit of the Spirit. To be kind to all people, no matter who they are, from an atheist to the person that ran the church that I just told you about. We need to love and accept all people. And we need to teach this to people at a young age. I'm not just telling you this because I work with youth here at church. I'm telling you this from the point of view of a person who was told these things that I thought to be truth, which turned out to be wrong. We need to teach about the true Jesus. The Jesus that loved and sat with all. The one who served all. The one who died for all. No hate, nor discrimination, but love. We need to love all, just like Jesus. One more quote to share with you. That I am in a safe place, that I am safe in this place, and it's okay to believe what I believe, even if it doesn't agree with religious norms of the past. That's what I want in a church. This message may have been very hard for some of you to hear, and it might sound like the future is bleak, like it's a lot of bad news, but I think we actually have a lot of good news. We are a very kind church already, and we're doing some of the most challenging things very well. We have a great pastor who speaks truth week in and week out, who challenges us with new ideas and is always there for us no matter what. We have leadership in place that is committed to serving others and growing the church as a whole in the world. We're heavily focused on ministering to our youth in the congregation. We're willing to love and accept, regardless of circumstances. But I also did want to open your eyes. We have to keep working and improving in not only the areas that we're already succeeding in, but also in those that might be weaknesses. We need to continue to strive to be a church of justice in the world, and a church that challenges not only millennials, but all members of the congregation to go out and change the world. And I personally want to thank all of you for the kindness that you've showed not only to me this morning, listening to some words that might have been hard to hear, but since I've started to attend here. I appreciate the love and the confidence you have in me to teach these concepts of the fruit of the Spirit, like kindness, to the younger people in our congregation. And I pray that we can continue to be a church dedicated to building up and supporting our youth, both inside these walls and outside. And most importantly, above all, a church of kindness to all people, regardless of who they are, who they love, what they've done, or what they believe. Amen.